Welcome, Iver, to Metalladium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Enslaved, this new album, Heimdall, and more things related to the metal world. And we are starting with a common question. How has the band been during these 3 years since after Udgar? I see a lot of active in social media, videos, etc., etc.
Well, it's been strange, of course, like for everyone. But actually, what happened was like 2 weeks into the pandemic, we were asked to do like one of the first, at least professionally produced streaming concerts from Bergen with a really strict arrangement with like we weren't allowed to go near the crew, and you know how it was really weird. But at least we got to do a concert then. I think it was the 1st of April in 2020.
Mhm.
And that proved extremely popular. We got a lot of positive feedback from that. So um, at least what we thought that, okay, if this is what we are going to, is this if this is what we have to do now for the, well, foreseeable future, as no one did know how long this was going to go on, then we were going to really put a lot of effort into it and do some serious productions. So we were keeping extremely busy, like you said, with doing those things, and actually with a bit of government funding that we are lucky enough to have in Norway. We were able to go on a few short national tours, just playing for, you know, like 50 people seated, which was extremely strange. But we got to be active in some way or another, and then what else do you do then? Well, you make a new album.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. Well, I've been listening many times to this new album Heimdall, where I did note that the slave drinks from the past albums always keep pushing something new ahead. Enslaved, that's the way it is since the beginning to
Mm.
now. So, do you think that the chaos of the pandemic and war influenced you to do more challenging album than the previous one, the Ulgar perhaps? Because usually because the musicians have a lot of connections with external and internal details of the environments in general.
Mm. I think it's I think it's several factors. One is that with Enslave, we have always tried to have some development, like you said, like take the elements that we have felt been successful, like artistically on one album, and develop it further, um, and at the same time keeping an eye on the history. Uh, and also, I think it's a bit, it's natural for any band, or for any progressive band at least, that you, if you did one thing on the last album, then the next album is probably going to go a little bit in the other direction. So you had Utgard, the previous album, which was a bit more immediate with the shorter songs,
Yeah.
and then both, I guess, colored by the pandemic and the chaos in the outside world and the isolation, that the material took on a more contemplative nature, and a bit more progressive, and maybe even a bit more inward looking on Heimdall than on Utgard, because Utgard was written and recorded almost as we were finishing off the world tour after the album before that. So it was really colored by the fact that we had been traveling around the world and playing live a lot. Whereas Heimdall, I think, is more contemplative. It's a bit looking a bit more inward. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. Talking about now about this aspect of or this subject of living influence and feeling what happens internally, externally for the musicians. So many musicians say that they don't have a direction when we're writing new music or carried away by the feelings that they have in the moment when they create the album, singles, etc. So for you, how do you the parts of producing an album connect with the idea of sensation of it? Could we say that the music for you is a concept thinking or is a concept not thinking? Because when as you play a lot of textures like progressive, always you be in touch with the mathematic area, riffs, schemes, 3, 4, etc., etc. So for
Mm.
you, what could we say that this is the music is what's created in a feeling way or is a thinking way?
Well, it's I think definitely for Ivar, who writes the riffs, it's mostly a feeling thing. Because often for me as a drummer, when I have to learn the parts to figure it out, you kind of have to count, and you have to be the go into it in the intellectual way. Whereas in the writing process, when the riffs and the songs arrive at him, I think it's definitely based on feeling. And so then at the later stage, he has to kind of think it through. Okay, what did I? So he kind of it's more like discovering after the fact that oh, this was 3 and 7 and but I think it's when it's created, it comes from a purely emotional, feeling based place. But then, of course, in arranging, we do apply um, intellectual thinking and a bit of theory, of course, for arranging the stuff. So I would say that very seldom will there be something that's created out of an intellectual concept, musically at least.
Hmm.
Lyrically, it's another thing.
Yeah. So, Kingdom, Congelia, Forest, The Wheeler, and Caravans to the Other Worlds, or Outer Worlds, were the first singles that released previous of this album. For that, in a world where more and more singles are important to promote an album, so how was the process to select these singles with an album of many sensations, a lot of textures? It was your idea, or perhaps to the label, or because for me, these songs are just part of an album
Mm.
because this new one has a lot of layers and it's very difficult to pick one.
Mm. Well, I'm not really, to be totally honest, I'm not really that fond of the whole singles thing. I would I'm an old-fashioned album fan also, so I kind of like to view the album as one thing, and what you choose to kind of take out of the album to represent it is more. It's another thing. I do agree that the singles are important now. Of course it is, with the videos and like if you didn't do it, you wouldn't be noticed at all. But there is no, we have no thought of which song should be the single while we're making the album, for instance. So it's more about yeah, we kind of leave it up to the label,
Hmm.
at least to present what they think is the single. And if we would totally agree, if they would pick one song and we would say no, are you crazy? We have to front this song. But I guess we wouldn't do that because we put so much into all the songs. Um, so whatever song gets chosen, or I think it's a good thing that people who have not been that integral part of the creative process actually choose what songs they would like to front from the album, because we are within the band, we are so colored by experiences of recording it or writing it. So actually, I thought it was really interesting that Kingdom got chosen as the first single,
Mhm.
and I really liked that choice because to put that one out as a first single, I guess a lot of people were kind of wondering, okay, what are they doing now? Because in the context of the album, it does make sense, but it's not your typical single.
Yeah.
In well, not in the pop metal way anyway. So so yeah, to conclude that, of course we would disagree if someone um, picked a song that we didn't feel were representative of the album, but we feel all the songs are representative. But there are, of course, a few. We really wanted to do something with Congelia, for instance, because it had such an interesting soundscape and like the cinematic scope of it that really made it interesting to try to do a video for it, which you have to do if you're doing a single nowadays. And it turned out quite differently from the other videos. So that was interesting.
Mhm. Okay, great, great. Well, another curious aspect of the launch of this Heimdall, it is that it is preceded by an EP with with the name is Forest the Wheeler and the other one's Caravan the other the Wheel. So which is increasingly familiar to me because I see that many big bands like Slave and other bands with metal releases, first come the EP now and then an album. That's a curious thing, or vice versa. First the
Mm.
album and then the EP. That's a curious thing. So, um, so what is the objective that, what is the subject or what is the main reason that the band has for this proposal to do EPs before or later? So, and an album with the same in the same month, perhaps, or perhaps 1 month before, one more later. Or it is because I see it's like a trend now. The labels are starting to use for the promotion in a band with a month of full
Mm.
EPs, videos, and more things receipt to the album.
Uh, Actually, I think it's interesting. I do wonder if it's conscious or if it's just the streaming services algorithm that once you have released once you have released 4 singles, that kind of automatically becomes an EP.
Mm,
If you go into iTunes or Spotify, it will show as an EP before the album is released, but actually it's just 4 songs of the album, and once it's long enough, it becomes an EP. It's
yes.
I think it's just those modern algorithms that are at play, because we never discussed doing an EP of the songs from the album. That's just the way it appears in the streaming
Okay.
services. Is my But what we did do, the caravans to the outer worlds, that's a proper EP. The
Okay.
one we did in 21, because those for us in the old school way of thinking, an EP should be maybe one song that will be on the album, but the rest should be other songs to make it like a short and interesting but quite different statement from the album. So I've also noticed that people are now referring to, the Forest Dweller EP, which is kind of weird to me, but I think it's just those algorithms.
Okay. Okay. Oh,
But
now.
it's an extra, like you say, it's a promotional tool for the label, because first it's the singles, and when you have 4 singles, it kind of automatically becomes an EP, and then yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh no, I'm now talking about your well, your direct job in the band where you are the drummer of the Slave now. So talking about the drum parts, how different is this album for you in terms of percussion and drums? Did you add something improvements with new techniques and methods compared to the previous work in the band like Utgar?
Um, I, I think the drumming was a bit more loose and they had a few more improvised parts on Utgar. But this album actually is very much composed by Ivar for the drum parts. I didn't really change much. Of course, it's my fills and the small variations, but like the general plan is very much like it has been written by Ivar actually. So that's a difference between those two albums.
Mm.
Of course, you have a few sections like the big beginning and the end of like the main riff on Forest Dweller. That's the kind of John Bonham beat that Ivar
Okay.
knows that I really like doing. So that's one thing that he said. Oh, you know how to do that. Just have fun. And but yeah, so it was on this album. There were a few parts that he had written that was a bit challenging to me, at least, as I don't consider myself the most technical drummer around. So I actually had to sit down and really learn a few parts
Okay.
because it challenged my limits, and and that's interesting and fun and frustrating, of course. So it was a bit more of those kind of things drum wise this time that I actually had to I had to put some real work in to just get the coordination going because I there are a lot of drummers that will be annoyed with or opposed to drum parts written by musicians that are not drummers because they will say that oh this is impossible to play or a drummer wouldn't think this way. But I think that's interesting. If you get presented with something that's outside of your way of thinking, then it challenges your mind to uh, try to incorporate that way of thinking into your own expression. And in many ways, you can say that could apply to the whole idea of enslaved. That you kind of challenge your way of thinking and try to bring some of those ideas that gets presented to you that maybe feel foreign or alien at first, but once you get to know them, you can internalize it and make it a part of your own thought processes or your own way of seeing the world, if you will.
Mm.
That's pretty pompous way of saying it, but still.
Um, Okay, so you said that well, you are still learning about new techniques about the performance for the new album, especially the drums, and also you keep learning new methods over the years because all the musicians keep learning until the end of the life. So that's the way.
Mm.
So it's what do you do to avoid repeating yourself on every album that you participate in? So, and is there a way, since your point of view as a drummer of percussion, and is there a way to go further with enslaved sound achieved over the years, but with your ideas, especially on the drum parts in the next albums?
I think there will always be possibilities of expanding, um, and often those new twists and new ideas come from maybe from doing what you've already done, but you do what you already did on a completely different part. Like if you um, there is a certain riff that you would automatically try to play a blast beat, for instance, but maybe the next time you do the blast beat over a riff that maybe you didn't think that it would fit. And also the same for the simpler part. If you have a guitar riff that you would think, oh, this is classic black metal, you have to have the blast beat, and maybe you think, oh no, I'll do the electronic krautrock beat on this riff instead, and just try to mix things up. And the ideal scenario, of course, is if you just try to not think too much, and still you just react to the riff, and hopefully your intuition will make you play something natural, and that will sound fresh, not because it's like mind-blowingly new, but just because it's the right thing to play. And that never grows old.
Okay. Okay, well, talking about especially from this new album, and I did note one thing is that your clean voice is more present into the songs if we compare with the previous words in the album from Enslaved. But since you entered to the band in the last word in Utgard, you sung a song there. Now you are singing more parts into this new album. So who came with the idea to sing, hey Ivar, please sing this song because your voice is much better than the previous one? Because it's very curious. I always see that Ivar and Grodel approach all elements from all musicians to do something more development in their music. So who came with the idea? Perhaps you singing meanwhile you are rehearsing with them and you start to sing and they love it. Who knows?
Yeah, it was a little bit like that. Of course, they have known me for many years, so they knew that I could also sing. But in the beginning, like the very first months when I joined Enslaved, it wasn't my plan to sing that much. But then as time went by, I guess I couldn't keep my mouth shut. So, but I'm kind of bemused and surprised, even for this album, that they keep wanting me to do so much vocals. And as long as we've and I think we managed to find a good balance on this album where I'm singing quite a lot, but I'm also, from my producer point of view, I really want to highlight Grutle's voice as well, as I think he's a really strong vocalist, both in the guttural vocals and the clean vocals. Like, for instance, that long section on the main part of Forest Dweller is like classic clean Grutle vocals. And people often... I have the impression that a lot of people think that he is not singing clean vocals at all. That Grutle, he's just the screamer.
Yeah.
But he has been doing the clean vocals since '93 for sections. Yeah. So, but then now that we have three people singing in the band, both Grutle and Håkon and me, and we have distinctly different voices.
Yes.
I think Håkon's voice is maybe more related to the kind of voice that Herbrand had. It's more mellow and kind of somber, and it kind of gets thrown to me if especially Grutle wants a more higher pitched, intense but clean vocal. Then quite often he'll say, "Oh, you do that screaming high pitched thing." So yeah, it's just great fun doing like figuring out and doing the vocal arrangements, because that is actually one of the composing parts that are left most up to Grutle and me, like arranging the vocal melodies and who sings what. So that's where we really can, yeah, try to find what works best, because Ivar hasn't really written. There will be lyrics and there will be like maybe ideas for, we want vocals here, but we don't really know how they are going to be. Like this is in the demo process. Um, so there's a lot of potential for, it's left pretty open for us to come with our own ideas for those things.
Okay, so we are very close to this interview, Iver. And
Yep.
for that reason, what are the future plans that the band has for this new record? Perhaps you are preparing more videos to promote this new album. Perhaps you have an European tour in the next couple of months, or perhaps this year, or who knows, next year, because we saw that you will play in North America this year with
Yeah.
Insomnium. So, and perhaps after this last announcement, who knows, perhaps a Latin American tour in the near future, because you are confirmed now for a Mexico Metal Fest at the end of September, I think, or November, September in Mexico. So perhaps you have more plans to do a full tour for this incoming gig in Mexico Metal Fest. And what is your expectation about this well-known Mexico Metal Fest?
Really looking forward to that, because I had never been to Mexico or Latin America, any part of Latin America before, when we were there in 2019. And it was actually Enslaved's first Latin America tour as well. So they never been there before. They played in Mexico, of course, like the classic, even from '95, and they played festivals there.
Okay.
So, and now that we have the festival there in, I think it's in November actually.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, yeah. That should be good fun, because Mexico was great last time. Actually, I think we had some Peruvians traveling to Mexico City for the gig there, because we didn't
Yeah.
play, we did not play in Peru, and that's I actually have at some point I hope that we could go there, because I have some personal reasons for, because my father, he used to work for the UN in the early 70s
Okay.
with some developing projects. So he worked a couple of months out of Lima in the early 70s.
Nice.
So when I was a little kid, I used to play games with the Peruvian money that my father brought home. So he had this little box with the Peruvian money, and of course I saw the pictures and stuff.
Nice.
So yeah, we have Mexico, and hopefully it seems like there is a lot of stuff going on next year, and also for 24 that I'm not at liberty to disclose, but I do hope that we can come back to Latin America, and who knows, maybe even Peru.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? Well, bueno, one of the last questions of this one. So, what is your main influence as a drummer now? Well, which drummer motivates you to play extreme music or extreme metal? Because Enslaved is extreme metal. So, who drummer motivates you when you hear for the first time their way to play drums and see, hey, I want to play like him drums?
I think for me, like being an old school, essentially, my background was from when I was a kid. I was a thrash metal guy, so it will still be Lombardo, and maybe the drummers of Iron Maiden and Filthy from Motorhead. That was my early influences. But then when in my late teens, I got more into progressive music. So of course, all the drummers from Frank Zappa's bands, Terry Bozzio and those crazy people. Primus, you know the band
Yeah, yeah,
Primus?
yeah, I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I was a huge fan of Primus, and but I guess also the more jazzy drummers like Billy Cobham, um, and yeah, even Simon Phillips from the fusion, more from the fusion world. So there are, and nowadays I'm a nerd. I can spend hours on YouTube watching fantastic people with the technique that you could only dream about. But it's fun to watch. But of course, also as a kind of fan of '70s music, you will have John Bonham and Ian Pace, and Bill Ward, the big three, um, and biggest of all is Ringo Starr for a for a drummer. And we can laugh, but he imagine he played on the biggest songs in the world, and he played perfect, and
Nice.
not always the obvious thing. He was it's a good lesson for all drummers to try to find something that serves the song, and that could be a blast bit, or it could just be some hits on a floor tom.
Yes, yes,
So
yes. Yes, yes. Well, one of the last, I think, yeah, this is the last, what the last question previously before we ending completely. So Heimdall is the last album, bueno, this 16 album from Enslaved, a huge career into the extreme metal. So how did you see the band be well, before you entered the band? Because in 2017, 8, 16, etc., you are an outsider of the band and a fan of the band, well-known musician by Ivar Grudel, you told me, but didn't play at that time with them. So now you are into the band. So how is your point of view change as outsider of Enslaved and now insider of In Flames the Enslaved?
well, it's been such a gradual process because, like I said, we were friends for probably like 25 years now, and we had some side projects during the years, and sometimes I played with Enslaved if they needed a sub drummer, and then long before I joined, I started producing them, like as part of the production team, actually recording with the previous drummer. So it was very much an inside job when I when I joined. It was kind of mafia, the whole thing. I
Okay.
kind of Grutle texted me like, "Okay, now Kato has quit and you join now." So, but yeah. So I can't really say because my perspective has changed so gradually since I've known them for so long, and like listened to the albums, and before I started working with them, maybe I liked some albums better than the other ones, and after I started working with them, then I couldn't really tell anymore because I had worked on it, so I was so inside of the whole thing. So my perspective has obviously changed, like you say, but it's hard to pinpoint in what way, because I think Enslaved has become part of my way of thinking, even without me knowing, because it's been building to the point where I eventually became the drummer. So it felt very natural, and when I started drumming for them full time, we kind of knew each other and the way we were thinking. So um, it's like we started out discussing. I think the first time I heard Enslaved, there were quite a few things that I thought was weird and sounded alien that I now probably find very natural. So their way of thinking has also been, it has become a part of my way of thinking over the years. So I guess that's the kind of natural conclusion to where we are now, at least.
Nice, nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice, Iver. Well, Iver, the sad times arrive at this interview.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy this one like me, doing what you are a terrific guy. So, congratulations on the new album. Perhaps you want to add something to your Latin American fans and Metalero followers.
Just want to repeat what I said, that I really, really hope that we can make it to Latin America and South America again. But who knows? The world is still pretty crazy. But I hope to see as many of your readers, listeners as possible around. When first possibility, I guess, is Mexico for those who have the opportunity to go there. And yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to you.